No snow day on the farm. We'll see how ranchers are dealing with the biggest ice storm in a decade. Plus, the nation has a new president, and the last cabinet position to be filled, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will have reaction. Plus, kids learn about their food by growing it. It's time to grow.
Whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator.
More on this week's wild weather in a moment, but first, the nation has a new president and rural America has spoken. As President Trump took the oath of office and begins his term, he was elected on the strength of support in rural parts of the country. But it took until the eve of his inauguration to fill his cabinet. Former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue has been chosen to lead the USDA. Perdue grew up on a farm and is a veterinarian by training. And Nebraskans are reacting to the choice. Senator Ben Sasse issued a statement saying he looks forward to talking to Governor Perdue. Sasse said, quote, "We have a lot to discuss: trade, regulatory burdens, and the unique interests of Midwest agriculture. Nebraskans feed the world, and our agriculture secretary needs to understand what we bring to the table," end quotes. And we talked to Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson.
We're very pleased with the announcement that President-elect Donald Trump has selected Sonny Perdue. He's got a strong connection to agriculture and has worked on behalf of agriculture for a long time in Georgia, and so we're very pleased.
You can watch the full interview with Steve Nelson on our website, nebraska.tv. And now to this week's poll question. What do you think of President Trump's pick to lead the USDA? Follow us on Twitter to cast your votes and join the discussion. And speaking of our poll question, results now of last week's poll. We talked about Palmer amaranth, a so-called superweed. Experts say it's now found in 2/3 of Nebraska, and the majority of you say it is a problem where you live. If you missed that interview, check out Grow on YouTube, and we'll continue to track the issue of herbicide-resistant weeds. Now to the week's other big story, the ice storm that now has melted, leaving pastures and fields muddy. The National Weather Service says it was the worst ice storm in a decade, with up to a ½ inch of ice in some places. Both Grand Island and Hastings broke single-day rainfall records. January tends to be the driest month of the year, with about ½ inch for the month. And some areas got far more than that in just 2 days. During the worst of the storm, hundreds of schools and businesses took a snow day, but it was anything but cozy on the farm. Icicles drip as freezing rain falls, and chores still need to be done.
Cold weather don't make it that fun usually.
Caring for cattle is what Judd Allen enjoys doing most days.
It's kind of fun when the weather's nice, but when it's not that nice, it's not that fun.
As he pulls the feed truck out, the herd's energy requirements are greater. Extension experts say for every degree below 30, energy requirements go up 1%. And cattle with wet coats need to eat more. Fortunately, the wind was light, and at this point in the winter, thick coats, along with the natural instinct to huddle, provide heat. Plus, cattle that score a better body condition fare better. But cattlemen put their own comfort second.
Just getting them fed for the day and making sure everybody's all right with no problems.
Near Blue Hill, corn stalks resemble popsicles. Lance Atwater says that doesn't do cattle much good, as producers supplement with hay. Experts say bedding, like corn stalks or straw, can also reduce stress from the frozen ground. And it's important to keep cattle watered.
Yeah, a guy really wants to make sure your waters are working or your tanks or you're chopping ice.
Judd says it's not as bad as that ice storm 10 years ago, but still it's not easy. And he says he'd much prefer snow anytime.
I'd rather be doing it in the snow, but at least it's moisture, so.
It could help the drought, but it's hard to look past the icicles and finish the day's work.
Things just take a little longer.
And that storm brought much needed moisture in a time of drought. NTV's Valerie Juarez has more.
Ice on the ground causing headaches for many Nebraskans hitting the roads today. But one local farmer tells me that while people were complaining about the weather this weekend, he actually was excited to welcome the ice storm with open arms.
The benefit is of course moisture, which we need in order to raise our crops. We need any amount of moisture that we can get during the off season, which is the winter season.
The National Drought Mitigation Center says 2016 was an abnormally dry year for Nebraska.
This past year, this particular area was hit very harsh by the drought. Any moisture that we're getting right now is helping to replenish what was taken out by the crop last year.
He says during the storm, his farm collected about 3/4 of an inch of rain, which is usually what he gets when it snows about 8 inches. But Keene tells me he prefers ice over plain old rain or snow.
We've already seen a large portion of the ice is already melted and is already starting to be absorbed into the soil. Whereas snow, it takes a lot longer process for it to be melt and to be absorbed in and to be beneficial, not only for the ground, but especially for our cattle. It just makes it sloppier longer as it melts.
Chief forecaster Ken Boughton tells me that freezing rain penetrates the soil more than snow.
Freezing rain still has more moisture content in it than snow does. And so, in fact, rain is generally coming down, freezing rain even, as rain. And it freezes when it hits the surface and collects on crop soil.
In other ag news, a Webster County farmer says about $25,000 worth of stolen cattle have now been found. Alan Johnson picked up 28 calves last weekend from the Sutton sale barn after they were reported stolen from his farm last week. Johnson says the cattle rustlers were planning on selling the calves. Right now, the Webster County Sheriff's Department is investigating. As we gear up for calving and another planting season, 3/4 of Nebraska farmers worry about obtaining operating capital this year. Nebraska Extension is increasing efforts to help producers who rely on annual operating notes to finance day-to-day needs like seed, fertilizer, and feed. Extension educators say demand for operating loans is on the rise, leading to some difficult conversations with bankers. Many farmers and ranchers are using cash reserves to pay debts and non-farm living expenses, and that means fewer dollars to pay operating loans. Young farmers face many challenges, but some are also working together through Nebraska Farm Bureau. NTV's Tara Gibbons has more.
They are the future of agriculture. The Nebraska Farm Bureau helps young farmers and ranchers brainstorm and understand what's in store for them.
We meet together once a year to be able to become rejuvenated, to feel motivated, do our networking, to make connections, and to be able to take some information from some different workshops that we have throughout the day.
One of those workshops explained the future of agriculture in regards to the election. The director of national affairs says President Donald Trump has a different viewpoint about trade than his organization. He says he hopes the president sees the benefits with working with other countries.
If you look at the massive quantity of product that we ship out of this state that go overseas, it's an unbelievably important thing for Nebraska's agricultural economy.
The young farmers and ranchers I spoke to hope for the best in agriculture. Some say the Trump administration is doing really well with the planning, but one farmer says there's still a lot of unknowns.
I think he's going to do the best he can, and hopefully he surrounds himself with the best people he can find.
With planning, there's always some room for improvement.
We need to improve how agriculture works with the Environmental Protection Agency, and I hope that he can make some progress there so we can bridge that gap.
Hotham also says President Trump made a wise choice for his pick for Agriculture Secretary. The president picked former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue to take on this position.
Later, kids in South Central Nebraska connect with agriculture in a unique way. But up next, we visit with one of the nation's largest family-run pig farming operations.